responsibly. But I mean, like I said, I really don't have any expectations, and the result was actually quite amazing. It's just about the singing and making the people smile and forgetting about their problems.
Richard Goodall's story on America's Got Talent is one of the most shocking, heart-wrenching tales the show has ever seen. What if we told you that the man who left the world speechless with his voice was barely holding it together behind the scenes? His life was marred by devastating losses, personal demons, and secrets so dark they were never meant to be exposed on national TV. This isn't just another tragic story. It's one that will leave you questioning how much pain one person can endure. What hidden struggles did Richard keep buried as he stepped into the spotlight? Richard Goodall's rise from nowhere to AGT fame. Richard Goodall's journey to the America's Got Talent stage wasn't just a simple audition story. It was the tale of a man who seemed to come out of nowhere. But in reality, his struggle had been years in the making. Before stepping into the spotlight, Richard was living a quiet life as a school janitor in Terre Haute, Indiana. His talent for singing had mostly been a secret, only known by a few close friends and family members. But what really drove him to chase his dream in front of millions? Behind the scenes, Richard had been through a series of personal battles. It wasn't just about wanting to be famous. His desire to perform came from a place of deep emotional healing. Growing up, Richard faced bullying and struggles with self-confidence that left deep scars. Music became his way of coping, his outlet for the pain he kept bottled inside. Yet, despite his talent, Richard never pursued singing professionally. Some say this was due to financial struggles, while others allege it was due to his ongoing battle with depression, a rumor that circulated but has never been confirmed by Richard himself. Fast forward to the day of his audition. Richard walked onto the AGT stage, a humble janitor with no formal music training, standing before celebrity judges like Simon Cowell and Howie Mandel. No one expected what came next. As soon as Richard began singing, the entire room fell silent. His voice wasn't just good, it was extraordinary. The emotional depth and soulfulness of his performance took everyone by surprise, and soon enough, he was trending on social media. But what wasn't shown on camera was the emotional weight behind his performance. According to insiders, Richard was on the verge of not auditioning at all. Rumor has it that he almost backed out due to a panic attack right before stepping on stage. Allegedly, producers had to calm him down in the wings, reassuring him that he had nothing to lose. Imagine if Richard had never mustered the courage to perform. His incredible story might have never been told. Isn't that crazy? You have to take so many leaps of faith to get to your destiny, and we sure are happy Richard did just that. As his audition clip went viral, people around the country were moved by his backstory, but few knew just how dark things had been for him. Despite the sudden fame and attention, some close to Richard say his life wasn't getting any easier. In fact, some reports suggest that the sudden spotlight may have intensified his struggles with mental health. However, Richard himself has remained mostly quiet about these rumors, choosing to focus on his music and newfound platform. What the public didn't see was the backstage tension that comes with such rapid fame. Sources close to the show have hinted that Richard felt out of place among the other contestants, many of whom had professional experience or formal training. He wasn't used to the glitz and glamour of Hollywood, and it's said that the pressure weighed heavily on him. Allegedly, some producers were concerned that he might not be able to handle the mental toll of the competition. In the days following his audition, Richard's life changed dramatically. He went from a local janitor to a national sensation overnight. But with that fame came a whole new set of challenges. One of the most shocking rumors that surfaced was that AGT producers may have pushed Richard to share more about his personal struggles than he was comfortable with. While this has never been confirmed, some former contestants have claimed that the show often uses emotional stories to heighten the drama. Could this have been the case with Richard too? As Richard progressed through the competition, his performances continued to move the audience, but behind the scenes, sources suggest that the pressure was mounting. Fame can be both a blessing and a curse, and Richard found himself caught in the middle of it. But the question that lingers is, what was really going on behind the scenes during Richard's time on AGT? The hidden tragedy no one expected. Richard Goodall's journey to America's Got Talent was not just marked by emotional performances on stage. Behind the scenes, his personal life was weighed down by tragedies that few people ever knew about. While viewers were moved by his soulful voice, what they didn't see was the depth of pain that had driven him to seek solace in music. It's easy to assume that someone like Richard, with his sudden rise to fame, was living a dream, but that dream masked some haunting realities. According to those close to him, one of the darkest chapters of Richard's life came several years before his AGT appearance. He had suffered the devastating loss of his younger brother, a tragedy that left him emotionally shattered. Though he rarely spoke about it publicly, some say this loss was the true catalyst for his decision to finally share his voice with the world. Allegedly, Richard turned to singing as a way to cope with the overwhelming grief, finding solace in the melodies that he couldn't find in his everyday life. In addition to this, Richard had reportedly endured financial struggles for much of his life. While working as a school janitor, he was living paycheck to paycheck, struggling to make ends meet. The idea of pursuing a musical career seemed like an unreachable dream. Some rumors even suggest that before auditioning for AGT, Richard had been on the brink of losing his home due to financial difficulties. These rumors, although unconfirmed, paint a picture of a man whose quiet life was far from simple. What made Richard's story even more heart-wrenching was that despite all his personal struggles, he was known for his kindness and generosity. Those who knew him described him as someone who would give everything he had, even if it left him with nothing. It was this spirit that made his performances on AGT so powerful. His voice wasn't just filled with talent, it was filled with the weight of a lifetime of hardship and compassion. However, some insiders have hinted that AGT producers were fully aware of Richard's tragic past, and some allege that they may have encouraged him to lean into that narrative to increase his appeal to the audience. While this has never been confirmed, it wouldn't be the first time a reality TV show used a contestant's backstory to heighten emotional engagement. Could it be that Richard's tragedies were being used to craft a more compelling story for viewers? As he continued through the competition, Richard's personal story became more widely known, but the pressure of balancing fame and his personal struggles seemed to weigh heavily on him. Behind the scenes, there were whispers that he was struggling to manage the stress. Fame, after all, can bring a spotlight that's both blinding and overwhelming. So how much of Richard's tragic story was truly revealed to the public, and how much was left hidden in the shadows of his personal life? The audition that shattered hearts. When Richard Goodall stepped onto the America's Got Talent stage, no one could have predicted just how much his audition would impact the world. As soon as he began to sing, it was as if time stood still. His voice had a depth and raw emotion that immediately resonated with the judges and audience alike. But what most people don't know is that Richard's performance almost never happened. According to sources, Richard was racked with anxiety just moments before walking on stage, and there were serious concerns that he might not go through with it. One rumor that surfaced after the audition was that Richard had broken down backstage just before his performance. Allegedly, producers had to step in and calm him down, assuring him that he was ready. Some say that his overwhelming emotions stemmed from his personal tragedies, particularly the loss of his brother, which had been weighing heavily on him in the lead-up to his audition. Though it's unclear whether this breakdown was ever confirmed, it does raise the question, was Richard's heart-wrenching performance a direct result of the pain he was carrying with him? The judges were visibly moved by his performance, with even Simon Cowell showing uncharacteristic emotion. But what wasn't shown on TV was the reaction backstage. According to insiders, there wasn't a dry eye among the production staff after Richard's performance. His voice, combined with his humble demeanor, had left an undeniable mark on everyone involved. In fact, some crew members later revealed that Richard's audition was one of the most emotional moments they had ever witnessed on the show. But beyond the tears, there was something else happening behind the scenes. Allegedly, AGT producers saw the potential for Richard's story to become a major emotional hook for the season. There are rumors that after his audition, Richard was encouraged to share more of his personal life, including the tragedies that had shaped him. While it's common for reality TV to play up the emotional aspects of contestants' lives, some have questioned whether this placed undue pressure on Richard to relive painful memories for the sake of television. Despite the overwhelming emotional impact of his audition, there were some who felt that Richard's newfound fame might have been too much too soon. Sources close to the show have suggested that after his audition went viral, Richard began to struggle with the intense public attention. He had gone from being a small-town janitor to a national figure overnight, and it's said that this rapid shift was difficult for him to navigate. Fame can be a double-edged sword, especially for someone who had already already been through so much in his personal life. As Richard progressed through the competition, his performances continued to move audiences, but there was a growing concern behind the scenes that he might not be able to handle the emotional toll. Could it be that Richard's audition, which moved millions, was also the beginning of a struggle that no one saw coming? Fame's brutal toll on Richard Goodall. When Richard Goodall's audition went viral, it seemed like a dream come true for him. Overnight, he went from being a school janitor to a national sensation, with people all over the world talking about his talent. But as quickly as fame came, so did the challenges that came with it. Fame is often romanticized, but for someone like Richard, who had lived a humble and quiet life, it can turn into a nightmare. His emotional performances had connected with millions, but few people knew about the heavy toll fame was taking on him behind the scenes. In the months following his audition, Richard found himself thrust into the public eye, with all the pressures that come with being a contestant on one of the world's biggest talent shows. According to some close to the production, Richard struggled to adapt to the intense media attention. Rumors surfaced that he had difficulty navigating interviews and handling the constant requests for appearances, something he had never been prepared for. While his voice was captivating, the reality of living in the spotlight was overwhelming for someone who had never sought it in the first place. One particular story that emerged from Richard's time on AGT was how he dealt with the scrutiny of social media. It's well known that contestants on reality TV often face harsh criticism online, and Richard was no exception. While many viewers praised his talent, there were also negative comments about his appearance and background, something that hit him hard. Allegedly, Richard began to withdraw from social interactions, and there were even reports that he took a step back from his own social media accounts after receiving an onslaught of cruel comments. This online backlash is something few contestants are prepared for, and for Richard, it was a harsh introduction to the darker side of fame. Despite these challenges, Richard continued to perform on AGT, but some insiders suggest that the stress was beginning to show. According to people close to him, there were moments during the competition where he struggled with self-doubt, feeling as though he didn't belong among the more polished and professional contestants. Some rumors claim that Richard had multiple backstage breakdowns due to the overwhelming pressure, though this was never confirmed by AGT producers. If true, it highlights just how intense the experience was for someone like Richard, who had spent most of his life out of the spotlight. One of the most shocking revelations came after the show had aired. There were whispers that Richard had been dealing with mental health issues throughout the competition, something he kept hidden from the public. Allegedly, producers had tried to downplay his struggles to avoid any bad press, but those close to Richard say that his mental health was deteriorating during the competition. Whether this was due to the pressure of fame or the unresolved grief from his personal tragedies, it's clear that AGT wasn't the smooth ride it appeared to be on television. Richard's family and friends were reportedly concerned about the impact the show was having on him, especially as the competition progressed. The combination of sudden fame, personal grief, and the relentless pressure of performing had created a perfect storm. Richard's story is a reminder that fame doesn't always bring happiness. In fact, for some, it can bring more challenges than they ever anticipated. While the world was mesmerized by his voice, the reality behind the scenes was far more complex. The question remains, how much did the pressure of fame contribute to the difficulties Richard faced after AGT? Richard Goodall's legacy, that still shocks the world. Though Richard Goodall's time on America's Got Talent may have been brief, compared to some of the show's more seasoned performers, his legacy continues to ripple through the world of reality TV and beyond. His performances left a lasting impression, not just because of his incredible voice, but because of the emotional weight behind his journey. Even today, years after his appearance on AGT, people continue to talk about Richard, not just for his talent, but for the shocking and heartbreaking story that unfolded both on and off the stage. One of the most striking aspects of Richard's legacy is how his story highlights the often unseen cost of sudden fame. His audition was a moment of pure magic, but it came at a personal cost that few could have anticipated. As more details emerged about his struggles behind the scenes, viewers were left with a bittersweet understanding of what Richard had gone through. His rise to fame wasn't just a Cinderella story, it was also a cautionary tale about the harsh realities of the entertainment industry. In the years following his AGT appearance, Richard's story has become a point of discussion about the way reality TV treats its contestants. Some have criticized the way shows like AGT lean into contestants' personal tragedies for the sake of creating an emotional narrative. While Richard's story was undeniably compelling, some insiders allege that he was encouraged to focus on his hardships more than he was comfortable with, turning his very real pain into a storyline for the cameras. Whether or not this is true, it's a question that has lingered in the minds of those who followed his journey. Richard's impact wasn't limited to the world of AGT, however. His story also resonated with people who had experienced their own personal struggles, particularly in the way he used music as a means of coping with grief and hardship. Many fans have said that Richard's performances inspired them to confront their own challenges, using creativity as a way to heal. His voice wasn't just a talent, it was a symbol of resilience. And that's what has kept his legacy alive long after his time on the show ended. Another unexpected part of Richard's legacy is the way his story has prompted broader conversations about mental health. Though it wasn't something discussed openly during his time on the show, rumors of Richard's struggles with anxiety and depression have since surfaced, leading many to reflect on the mental toll that fame can take on individuals who aren't prepared for it. This discussion has only grown in recent years, as more and more reality TV contestants speak out about the pressures they face behind the scenes. In the end, Richard Goodall's legacy isn't just about his voice, it's about his story. He entered AGT as an underdog, and while he captivated the world with his performances, the journey he took wasn't without its dark moments. His tale is one that still shocks viewers today, serving as a reminder that fame isn't always as glamorous as it seems. What part of Richard Goodall's journey surprised you the most? Was it his rise to fame, or the struggles he faced behind the scenes? Let us know in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button for more stories like this. Make sure to turn on notifications so you don't miss any updates. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.